We thought maybe you'd show up with your guitar.
Oh, I should have brought my guitar.
I know, right? We can do all that. And you can plug a guitar into this whole system and everything.
That's sweet.
I don't know why it had a delay in the switch in there.
Weird. You're right. Maybe it is haunted.
Okay. We're working out the bugs here at the Old Big Fat Podcast. We can't afford a Jamie or whatever.
An IT guy in general.
Yet. Charlie, tell us about the Stillwater News. How did you come in? Tell us the story of the Stillwater News.
It's an interesting story, actually, because I was in Boulder, Montana. I was the editor of the Boulder Monitor. And my wife and I...
Where's Boulder and how big's Boulder?
Boulder is right between Helena and Butte.
Okay.
And it's pretty small.
I'm not too familiar with that.
It was the
side
smallest place I'd ever lived.
Really?
Before Absaroka, and I think it's comparable to Absaroka.
Then where are you from originally?
I'm from Indianapolis originally. From the suburbs of Indianapolis.
So how did we get to Montana now? Now I got to know that.
My dad is a retired Presbyterian pastor.
Okay.
And he took a job preaching in Big Sky when I was in college.
Oh, okay.
And I helped them move out and just fell in love with Montana.
Right on. Everybody has a story of how we found God's country. I'm originally from Southern Nevada myself. And
how long have you been in Montana?
2007.
Nice. I've been here since... Well, my parents moved here in 2006, and I moved here in 2008.
Perfect. So, yeah, our experience is about the same.
Yeah.
So you ended up in Boulder, and you're at the Boulder. How did you end up at the Boulder paper?
So I was a journalist for 15 or so years, and I took a break from journalism when COVID hit. And I just kind of hit the reset button. I'm like, I want to do something different. And I was working at the Chamber of Commerce in Lewistown, where I met my wife. We were living in Lewistown for 10 years, which is the longest I've lived anywhere since growing up in Indy. And I was running the Charlie Russell Choo Choo dinner train.
Oh, right on.
In Lewistown.
Sweet.
And it was a fun gig. But we were ready for something different. And my wife loved Boulder Hot Springs. It was her favorite place in the world. And we would go there for like birthdays, anniversaries, just to get away. And when the job came open for an editor at that paper, I had a really good talk with the publisher, fascinating guy, and he owns it outright, so it's totally independent.
Yeah.
And
that sounds like a good gig.
Yeah, I figured I wouldn't go back to journalism unless a good editor job came up.
Yeah.
So I felt ready to get back to journalism. I was missing it.
Yeah.
And so we took the leap, and so I wonder how much of this I want to put in the podcast, because I was actually the fourth editor in 4 years.
Really?
At that paper.
And I'll remind you, we are not live.
Yeah,
we get to say whatever we want.
Yeah. So
and Cole does it to me all the time. He's like, "Here, go cut this terrible part out." And when I cussed out so and so and dropped this guy's name, no, we rarely cut anything out. But no, I'm just saying.
Yeah. So there was a red flag because the editor who was leaving. I mean, there were a lot of things he loved about the job, but
right.
I caught that he was the third one in 3 years.
So there's something going on.
So it's kind of like when you're in high school and there's this girl you're kind of interested in, and you find out that the last 3 guys she was with, it ended in a month or two. Just it was a disaster.
Right.
And you're like, it wouldn't happen to me.
Right.
Not me.
Yeah.
So I was a little naive.
Yeah.
Jumping in.
When she's too hot, you tend to look past the red flags. When the deal is too good, right?
Yeah.
We look past those red flags. But so you were like trying to be aware of the red flags. Are there red flags here?
Yeah, and it was just like he had the idea for this job that is a good idea, a great mission, but there was just no life-work balance whatsoever. It was just the Boulder Monitor would be my entire life, and I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
For one, like my wife, she doesn't want her husband to have that kind of job.
Yeah, of course.
And I have other interests.
Yeah.
So I was frustrated, and I took my frustrations out by starting a rock band in Boulder.
Oh,
and
nice.
And we still get together. We just played West Yellowstone last weekend.
Did you really? What's the name?
We are Depot Hill, because that's the name of the road that the radon mine is on. The guy who
Depot Hill,
who owns the radon mine, in Boulder, He's the co-founder.
That's a good band name.
That is a good band name.
That is. Depot Hill.
I like it. It was
I
we
do.
had a hard time figuring out a band name, and then that one he just brought to band practice one day, and we're like, yeah,
That's
the
not.
one.
Yeah. That's awesome. I like it.
Yeah.
Both Cole and I we're like, yeah, that's a good band name. Oh, that's awesome. So you guys, you were jamming in where? West Yellowstone?
Yeah, we just played music in the parks in West Yellowstone last weekend.
Right on. That's
So
awesome.
we
What do you
still get
play?
together, play guitar and sing.
Oh, nice.
Do mainly acoustic, but do some electric as well.
Man, that would be cool to have you in here and plug into this.
No,
like we
that'd
could
be
figure
fun.
you'd be our first in-studio musician. We should play with that idea.
Right on. Anytime.
Yeah.
So you're over in Boulder. Then what brought you over to the Stillwater News?
So, like I said, I've been a journalist in Montana for a long time. My first job in Montana or my first reporter job was in Glendive, actually.
Really?
Because I was in Big Sky. I was bartending at the 320 Guest Ranch for a summer, and that was a great time. It was a wild time, but I wanted to put my journalism degree to use. And so I went to journalismjobs.com and saw that Glendive needed a reporter. And I'd never been there, and my first time there was for a job interview, and it was 6 hours away from Big Sky.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a drive.
Yeah,
And I
it's
wasn't
out there.
Wasn't used to
Yeah.
the long Montana drives at that
Oh,
time
yeah.
either.
It's out there.
So I got the job, and that was an experience. I was there for
Oh, I
almost
bet.
3 years in the Badlands,
Yeah.
and great people. I loved it,
Yeah.
but I was ready to leave Glendive at the same
Really?
time. Yeah.
I worked on the railroad out there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Cool.
Not all the time, but I was on different gangs. We'd go out in that area, and I was mainly on welding gangs, and we'd stay in Glendive and then work on the track all in that area. So, and then I'm kind of a history nut about, and I've read a ton of books on just, 19th century Montana, and Glendive is actually pretty prominent. That whole area out there is pretty prominent.
That's
there,
pretty
so.
fascinating
Yeah.
history there.
Yeah,
I really like the
so-
history of that area too.
Where-
And,
some
and
peop-
there's dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that sealed the deal for me. It reminded me of Land of the Lost.
Yeah.
Makoshka did, and then I just when I was a kid, I was like obsessed with the Cretaceous period.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. There's so much going on out there. I don't think enough people appreciate that. They just hear
No.
Glendive and they're like, "Oh, there's nothing out there."
One of my favorite experiences as a reporter was when I got to go on a dig in Makoshka, and
Oh, yeah.
a guy found a Triceratops humerus.
What?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Dude.
yeah, it was mind blowing.
Yeah. I know they do digs.
Wow.
They do digs farther south down by Ekalaka all the time. And then they can even have we've looked at taking the kids down there. You can go down, they have digger days. And you go down there and you go into an active dig and the kids get to help filter and everything like that. And it's pretty cool. I didn't know they were digging in Makoshka. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
I don't know how often they do it, but
Yeah.
that was pretty cool to be a part of.
Wow. So how long did a dig like that go? I mean,
They were there for several days, and I went out for one day, and
Okay.
fortunately it was the day they found the
That
humerus.
is so cool.
oh wow.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's like something you get to always one up everybody in the room. Well, did I tell you about that one time I found a Triceratops humerus?
Cole's pretty used to that.
I know.
imagine.
Cole does that all the time.
No,
He gets
I
cool
don't.
experiences to drop all over the place.
Not really.
We'll get to you. No, that's really cool though. And so you were working for that paper then at that time. You get to
Yeah. So the back to the original question, I started in Glendive, and then I was with that same newspaper company, switched to the Lewistown paper just because I was ready for a change, and that paper was looking for an opening. I'd visited Lewistown before. I thought it was a really cool place.
yeah.
So, and that's where I met my wife, and I wound up staying in Lewistown for a good while.
Yeah.
And
How'd you like it up there?
I really like Lewistown.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's great people. And the one thing I didn't like about Lewistown was that, it's centrally located, which is nice, but it's 2 hours from everything. And in the winter, that's rough.
Yeah.
Especially as a musician. I had to learn the hard way, not to book gigs in the winter in Great Falls or Bozeman or something.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah, it was a challenge. They call
Wow.
it a snow hole for a reason.
Wow. That's interesting that in your Montana experience, we've been here about the same time, you've actually been around. You've kind of gotten a little taste of a lot of Montana.
Eastern, Central, Southwestern,
Yeah.
and now here in Stillwater. And my wife she's from this area. Well, her family is originally.
Okay.
So her mother comes from here. It was her grandparents ranched in Fishdale.
Okay.
So she's actually 5th generation of Stillwater County now.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And she works at the museum, and she's
I've met her.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
She says hi.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I'll tell her I said hi. I love going over there. I haven't been over there in a little while, but I do love going in that museum.
Yeah,
I wish I
it's
could.
really awesome.
I wish I could spend all kinds of time there. But so that's awesome. So you met her in Lewistown.
Yeah, at open mic night.
Ah,
Yeah.
nice.
Does she sing too?
She doesn't.
Hey, but now she's got a backstage pass. She's with the band.
Yeah, she enjoys going to shows. And
That's
yeah.
awesome. Well, that's cool. So you were at Lewistown for then how long? How was that experience there? And so you're working at like traditional papers.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was Glendive and Lewistown were both twice weekly
Yeah.
newspapers.
Wow. You know, I just small town newspaper gigs. I think that's actually really kind of cool. You don't really, as everything is going more and more toward apps and more and toward everything else, but still to be a local, covering the local stuff that's going on and local issues. I mean, that still has to have appeal to everybody that, I don't know, in some areas I know that newspapers are taking such a hit, but in the local small towns, people still care about the small town issues.
Yeah, I feel like there's more job security in the small papers now than there are in the bigger papers.
I would think so.
You know, people I know at like the Missoulian, for example, like they're pretty nervous.
Yeah.
You know, when I ask them how things are going, they're like, well, I still haven't gotten laid off.
Oof. That's a rough way to go through
Yeah.
Yeah.
your career. But doing the small town papers, there's always people care about the small town issues.
Yeah.
There's always stuff to
Yeah.
cover for that. So
And they're cool because, like, even when I was stationed overseas, my parents would send me the Stillwater paper.
Nice.
You know, so I was able to. I mean, Facebook was still relatively new. You know, we had MySpace, so I don't even think Facebook was
We are
around yet.
part of the MySpace generation.
Yeah, we are the
Yeah,
MySpace
thanks,
generation. He was my first friend. But I remember my parents would send it to me, especially when I was stationed over in Germany, and it was
Wow.
I mean, it was so cool to like always stay connected to home with the newspaper.
Yeah.
You know, and I just think now, if I was in that same situation and I just pull it up on Facebook and read an article, I just don't think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I think the small town papers, I hope they don't go away ever. Really.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
I hope
there's
so.
something tangible about reading the paper.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that you get that different feeling. Like reading a book. Same thing. I can read it on my Kindle or on my tablet, but man, picking up an actual book and flipping the pages, they're just I don't know, you just get that little bit more of emotion when you're reading. At least to me. I don't know, I could be like the minority in that whole
Yeah,
thing too.
no.
So
I'm with you.
Well, and even so, that I feel like at least that there's somebody that is still bringing a focus onto the happenings of this community versus everybody's individual now. Everybody has a recording studio and worldwide distribution in their hand.
Yep.
But it's everybody's individual story, whereas that the paper still kind of becomes the story of that community still. So I think that's I hope that doesn't go away either, because the story of a community, I don't know, its culture, its happenings, all that stuff, it has a life of its own. I really like that I can go back and look up newspaper articles of, you know, these guys that I was doing research on, doing these little videos we were doing, like Bill Hamilton,
Yeah.
you know, 1908. I could research it, and I found the original newspaper that had been scanned, and you can read his obituary in there, or any of the other things, that the articles that are in all these newspapers, but it's a story of that community. And like 100 years from now, even though everybody's on their phone or doing whatever they're going to be on in that time, it'll be interesting to see where does that go. Hopefully there's still a small town newspaper that's chronicling the happenings of a community or the life of a community.
Yeah, because what happens to a time capsule when it's just part of the online infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I try not to take for granted about the job, is that this is part of the lifeblood of the community. This is something that will last forever. And,
Yeah.
And it's just me, and fortunately I have more contributors now, and I've just I feel good about the buy-in that I've had since I started.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm new here. People don't know my name, but they've responded positively to the direction I have for the paper. Nothing against what the Stillwater County News was before. It's just
Yeah.
I feel like I accentuate the positive a little more than what was happening previously, and also still, I mean, just try to get as much as I can that's informative and important for people to know.
Yeah.
But it's hard every week it's a big county for small staff.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's always a challenge.
Yeah, but it's kind of a big responsibility. You're like the documentarian of the community.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're the one keeping the record. You're the historian in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
Who is chronicling things, not just of the now, but of what people will be able to look back and see what was going on how did things affect people, in this community at this time, or how did this happen, or how did that happen? It's actually, when you start really thinking about it, it's like, oh, dude, you have a heavy responsibility.
Yeah, it can be heavy.
Yeah.
Can be heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why it's good to make time for things like this too. They're just fun.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it doesn't feel like work. There's some parts of it that do,
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's a lot of rewards to it. It's not like a thankless job. Some people look at it like, oh, that must be a thankless job, but it's not. I feel like
What kind of feedback do you get?
I get pretty much all positive. I mean, occasionally, somebody's upset, but I haven't gotten much of that. I mean, and if somebody is upset, they should talk to me. They shouldn't feel afraid to say something to me.
Yeah.
If there's something I'm not covering, I mean, Cole, you're very involved with the community. If there's ever anything that you feel like I'm not covering, let me know.
We do see a lot of each other.
We do.
Yeah. So,
Wow. That's cool.
yeah. So back to it. So you were at Lewistown, and then you went to Boulder,
Yeah.
and then from Boulder, then you took a break, or you took a break.
So
at Lewistown?
I went to Boulder, and I took a break while I was in Lewistown when COVID hit.
Right.
So it was just like my grandpa died of COVID. And I was pretty close with him, and he was out in New Hampshire, and it was a weird moment, because it was like that happened right around the same time that when Tom Hanks got COVID and the NBA shut down. And I'm like, okay, this is serious.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. It just affected me. Like, I didn't want to go back to work. I was working from home for a little while when the lockdown started, and when I went back to the office, it just didn't feel right. I had been kind of burnt out at that point too. I mean, I'd been there for 10 years, and that's a long time to be reporting in the same community. And if I was the editor, or I'd gotten promoted or something, I think it would have been different. I would have stayed longer, but the editor wasn't going anywhere, and her and I had worked together for like 7 years. It was a great relationship, but it just didn't feel like right to me anymore. I just felt like I needed to step away, do something different. And that day that I was feeling that way, the chamber director called and said that she was looking for a new Charlie Russell Choo Choo train coordinator. So
You're like, rock on.
Yeah, and I'd already played on the train several times. I was their little cowboy that would run around on the train, so I was very familiar with the operation, and took that job and did that for about 2 years. And then when the Boulder job came open, we moved out there. And that was a big transition for us, especially for my wife, because she had lived in Lewistown for 25 years, and she'd raised her kids there.
Yeah.
But her kids are there in Missoula now. They're grown. So, but her daughter was still in Lewistown, so that was hard for her.
Yeah.
But and the move was hard for her. Like, she's just not as social as I am.
Yeah.
And I was so busy
Yeah.
with that job that it was just a little isolating for her.
Yeah, I bet it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Going to a new area. I totally get it. I just kind of packed up and moved. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't even have a job here. I just moved here.
What attracted you to the area?
I don't know. I drove truck for a living for several years, and I drove all over the country, and I drove through Montana a couple times. And my parents actually did a church kind of volunteer mission thing up in Harleton a couple of seasons, and I went and visited them. I don't know. I just fell in love with how remote it was and the beauty of it all. I don't know. So I just knew that I wanted to get out of the desert. I'd been in Southern Nevada, raised in Southern Nevada my whole life, and I just knew that, do I want to always be here, or do I want to go try and have a different experience? And so I just kind of picked it out on a map. I did a lot of searches, and I was like, I want this much land and for about this much money, and let's just see what pops up around Montana. And lots of things kept coming at me, and I started looking at, there's all this stuff keeps coming, from this area. And I looked at that and I was like, I've never heard of this area. But look at this. There's these two rivers that meet right here. It's just kind of right close enough to Billings. Yeah, not too far from Yellowstone Park, which I hardly ever go, but got to go recently with Cole, which was a treat.
Nice.
But just all those things. And I had kids that were, one was about to go into high school. One was going into like 7th grade, I think, and one was going into 3rd grade. And I was like, if I don't make the jump now, then I'm going to be stuck here. So anyway, I just wanted to have a different experience and just come up here where it's green and there's seasons and snow, and just have a different experience than what kind of the rest of my family has been used to having. And my kids have all thanked me afterwards. Like years down the road, they were all like, hey, like, thanks for picking Columbus. Like, did sports. We went to lots of schools. We got to see, we're really grateful that you picked this town, not only for the school, but just the community. And so that I was hoping that my kids were going to like it, but to have them finally come back to me years later and say that, hey, that was a good call. I was like, oh, phew. I didn't. So that's one less thing for you to talk to your therapist about. So no, but that's all been good. And now none of them live here, but they're all out in the world doing their thing. But they all enjoy coming back here to this area. Yeah,
that's
when
a beautiful
they come to visit.
area.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they love it here. Yeah, but they're all out now doing different things. But they do like coming home. Yeah, so I have no regrets about moving to this area. I've loved it. And then I met my wife here.
Awesome.
And she was born and raised here. I had a food trailer, and she came eventually. She was like, hey, she was a big time foodie, and she actually came and worked with us there for a while, and we had a great time. She was super awesome at everything. And she's the foodie. Like, she knows food like, she thought I was a big time foodie. I am to a degree. I'm more of the experience of the food truck thing. Like, but I was really big on the whole atmosphere side of things and the whole experience side of things. And yes, good food. I don't really know that much about food. I know this though. Like, when I picture something, I know that I will keep asking myself, what would make this better? And then I try to make it better. But that doesn't mean I'm some gourmet chef. I don't have that kind of a background. I just like to I just know good food when I see it. And so I don't have a big background in food. She actually has a much larger background in food. So she was actually kind of surprised when she first came in there and started working on how clueless I really was about certain
You're
things
not
about
a foodie?
food. Yeah. And she was just like amazed. But anyway, then she actually moved away. And then that's a whole nother long story. She actually moved away, and I just did we just continued doing our thing. And then eventually, I hadn't even been talking to her or anything. And she contacted me and said, hey, I'm going to be moving back to the community, moving back to town. And I said, well, I don't know if you were done with this place or not. If you need something in transition, you can come back. And anyway, she came back and started working with me again. And then we found out we really like being with each other. We like working with each other. We like just hanging out with each other. And that's kind of rare to be able to work with somebody in that close of quarters and still like each other.
Very close.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, we found that out, and eventually we got married and yada yada. So we found love in a food truck.
Sounds like a country song.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Fell love in a food truck.
Yeah. It does. That's it right there, man.
Yep.
So how we ended up getting here was kind of funny because, well, we actually live in Carrie's grandparents' house on Henry Street in Absaroka, and they passed away 20 years ago, and I never actually had the good fortune of meeting them. We had thought at some point, like during COVID and stuff, when we were looking for something different, that maybe, living here would make sense. Carrie's got a lot of family in Billings. That's where she was raised. She still, feels connected to this area, but we didn't know what we'd do for work exactly. And when I talked to my, colleagues in the newspaper industry, and told them, that I was looking for something different than the Boulder paper, they started throwing some stuff at me, and I was like this close to taking a reporter job at the Livingston Enterprise, when out of the blue, Marlowe resigned. And so they called me up and they're like, do you want to be the editor at the Stillwater County News? And I remember we were on our way to an oil change in Helena, and we're like, let me call you back.
And your heart's racing all of a sudden.
Yeah, and we're just talking about it, and we were figuring out, we didn't really have a great living situation lined up in Livingston. We have some friends there and stuff, and it's a cool place, especially, as a musician. And
yeah.
But this just made so much more sense for us.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that the opportunity came up when it did, because it was just perfect for us.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm glad it's being a positive experience for you, because I think this area is it's great. It's unique.
Yeah.
And as I've delved more into the history of this area,
Mm-hmm.
it's just been fascinating to me I'm like, holy mackerel, Cole, actually, I moved here and I got introduced to Cole, and we started talking, and then I found out that, oh man, you grew up here, and he started introducing me to books, and started telling me books. I started reading. He would loan me his books, and I was reading books about all this kind of stuff. We started clicking about some of that. That was actually my first introduction to the history around here. And
do you remember the book?
I do. Well, there was the that book with Andrew Garcia,
Tough
Trip Through Paradise.
Yep.
Then there was another book that was kind of like a cannot remember the name of it, but it was kind of a I don't know, almost like a Jeremiah Johnson.
Mountain Man by Vardis Fisher.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
But it wasn't like, it was like
It's kind of like historical fiction-ish. It's like kind of a combo of like 3 or 4 Mountain Men. Part of the movie, Robert Redford's movie, is based off of Vardis Fisher's Mountain Man. And then the other one is the Liver Eating Johnson, his quote-unquote biography.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vardis Fisher's Mountain Man was the other one.
That's the other one. I didn't know the name of that one, but I really did enjoy that one too. And then after that, I read Crow Killer, continuing to read about Liver Eating Johnson. And and then I just I don't know what brought it back up again. I don't know how I got started into it, but last year or so, or the year before, I can't remember what it was, but I just started going hard. If I brought up my Kindle right now, it's just like 15 books. I don't even know, just of things, of historical stuff in Montana, mainly 19th century stuff, and different things. A lot of things about the Battle of the Little Bighorn, that whole area. But and as I was researching about that, then you start to find out more things about that just happened in this area and all the different people, the characters who came through this area. Then the other thing I found was that book at the museum, and it's not at the museum, I don't think anymore, but they gazed on the Beartooths.
Oh yeah.
And I checked that.
Collection.
Yes,
yeah.
I checked that out at the library when I first moved here, and dipped into that, and now I've borrowed Cole's copy of that book, but I have done a ton of reading in that book, and that book is fascinating, and all the stories of just crazy things that have gone on in this area, and all the characters, and it's crazy.
It's amazing. We have that book at the office, and I dive into it sometimes, and Carrie has some of her relatives are in there and stuff. It's really cool to check out.
One of my favorite ones that I can't get over is Lee Lute. Have you ever seen Lee Lute?
Mm-mm.
Check out the story of Lee Lute. It's only like 2 pages.
Huh.
Yeah, and it's just a mention in there of this Chinese guy named Lee Lute. And I was talking to my son Connor about it. He lives out in Utah, and I've been telling him he wants to like write a movie script or something. And I was telling him about Lee Lute. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, you should write the whole backstory on Lee Lute. And yeah, Lee Lute, I'll tell you really quick. I'll give you the quick version of this. And this is so interesting. And I've been over to the museum. Penny brought out old maps, and we figured out where Lee Lute's laundry was. And it tells this story in there that Lee Lute was sent over from China in the 1870s by the Tong family or the Tong organization. That's what it basically says. So sent over by the Tong organization to be a teacher in Chinatown in San Francisco. And then it says, but things got monotonous, and he wanted to go try his hand at mining, and so he left for holy mackerel. That's me. I didn't put my phone on do not disturb. So this is where this story doesn't jive. As you're reading it, I read it through the first time, and then it was, and I'll tell you why. There's a backstory not being told here in this 2 pages, and this is where I think, gosh, this would make a great movie. So I read this whole story, and it says Lee Lute, he left he went to Colorado, did some mining there, did some mining in Nevada, and then he ended up in Virginia City, Montana in 1875, did some mining over there, and then he ended up over here in Columbus in 1877, 2 years later. And then he goes up into the mountains outside of Nye, and it mentions in the paper that he came back to town with all of these samples, and that Lee Lute is going to be the first millionaire in this county or in this area. And he was working with these other guys who were developing these mines, but it never turned out for some reason. But he ended up starting the best and only laundry in town, and he was just that guy. And he ran the laundry, but he also kept going prospecting. So he's up prospecting. He's gone. He's out of town. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Lee from Billings sends a message to Wang Toi. And Wang Toi is this other Chinese guy who's here in the town. And there's a few mentions of him, and there's some pictures in the Montana Historical Society you can find of Wang Toi. And you can find the photo of Lee Lute in there as well. So Mr. Lee, I was like, the first time I read it, I was like, okay, whatever. But then I go and I look up, who's Mr. Lee? Well, Mr. Lee, there's actually a marker in downtown Billings for Mr. Lee. And he ran the south side of the tracks. And what that means is he had several businesses, and he was like the head guy of all of the Chinese labor. And that was a big deal because at that time, 10% of Montana's population was Chinese. And these were laborers brought over, and he ran the labor. So when the union or the railroad wanted to get anything done, they went through Mr. Lee because he controlled all the labor. He also controlled the red light district on the south side of tracks. And so he's a influential guy. He owned some very respectable businesses. There's actually still a building downtown that was owned by Mr. Lee, and he built that building. So this guy is kind of a well-connected guy. He sends a message over to Wang Toi that says, hey, warn our dear friend, Mr. Lee Lute, that there are 2 yellow men from our yellow countrymen here, and they mean to do him violence. And it's funny how it words it. I'm gonna mess it up, but I'm just trying to tell you how it was written in there. And they're like, they means to do him some violence, so you warn him, whatever. Wang Toi goes to another guy's house. Can't remember, it's Charlie somebody. I can't remember his name. Charlie somebody, who's his next door neighbor with Lee Lute. He's like, I got to tell Lee, there's some guys that are here. Got a message from Mr. Lee in Billings to warn him to watch out. So he's like, well, he's not home. So soon enough, though, Lee Lute comes back out from the hills. He'd been up prospecting, comes down, and they're like, hey, you got to get out of town. There's some guys here. I guess they're after you. And he was like, oh, well, then I'm not going anywhere. Let's have a showdown. And they're like, well, are you going to protect you? So you're going to stay in my barn. I got a secret spot up in my barn. We're going to hide you up in there. And then he contacted a friend of his named Three Finger Dixon. Now, this is just all coming together like characters from a movie, is this
right.
not?
But this is all here. That's
This
the
is
cool
all
thing.
here.
It's all the cool thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So this is all here, and they get their friend Three Finger Dixon. Three Finger Dixon is part-time lawman and part-time stagecoach guy, okay? And so he rides on the stagecoach, and he also does part-time lawman stuff. And they tell him what's going on, and then he's like, well, I'm going to go down to the station, the depot, Columbus Depot, every day, and I'm going to watch for the dinky. And the dinky, I learned, was a local train that left Billings every day and would go out to the local areas. It was a 3-car little local train. So every day, Three Finger Dixon's hanging out at the depot to watch the dinky, and who are the passengers that get off? So he's down there doing that day after day, and then sure enough, here comes these 2 Chinese guys, and they get off the train, and they got their luggage with them, and he's like, he goes and he says, hey, what can I do for you? And they're like, hey, we're looking for a friend of ours, Mr. Lee Lute. He was like, oh yeah, I know where Lee lives. I'll take you there right now. So they takes him over there, obviously takes him to Charlie's house, and they've got Lee Lute upstairs hiding in that barn. I can't remember if it was in the house or out in the barn. I think it was out in the barn. And then I cannot remember too how or why they just pulled guns. They pulled guns on these 2 guys pretty dang quick. And they just pulled guns on them, and they're like, hey, we know why you guys are really here, and you're not going to hurt our friend Lee Lute. So you're going to leave town now. And they were like, oh no, like, we don't understand what you're talking about. We don't understand. That's what it says. It says they just acted like, we don't understand. That's when Charlie goes, shoots over at this stump like 50 feet away. And they got the message like really clear, it says, and they are immediately like, okay, we're going to do what you say. And go to reach for their bags, and they're like, no, you don't need your bags. You can leave those right here. And they're right then the Ed Cardwell boys. It calls them the Ed Cardwell boys, I think it says. And so look that up. And I'm like, oh, those are riders from that ranch to the west of town. And I can't remember if it was Eagle. I don't think it was Eagle's Nest Ranch at that time. I can't remember. Maybe it was. I can't remember what it was. But Ed Cardwell, super big guy, well-known guy, he lived a long time. And I think he got into politics and Billings even. Anyway, these riders, all these cowboys ride up, and they're like, what's going on? And they're like, oh. And they told them the story. These guys are here hunting our friend Lee Lute, and we're going to send them packing down the road. And they're like, oh, we'll take it from here. And they rode those guys out west of town to what is now the Springtime exit at the interstate there. There used to be a siding there. And they sat out there with them and made them wait for a train and watched them get onto a train out there and sent them heading out west. So every town along the railroad had its own kind of like Chinese kind of, not like Chinatown, I wouldn't say, but there was a lot of Chinese laborers here. And so in Livingston, they went there, they went and found these guys, and they started bullying people for money. It says that they did that there, and then they went on to Butte, and then word came back that one of them got stabbed and killed over in Butte. And these were just rough character guys who were just... So the part that was interesting about that was, what is it about Lee Lute that would require them to send 2 guys out to kill him all the way up in Montana from San Francisco? And they went through their bags, and one bag just had normal luggage. Oh, there was drugs too. It said there was drugs.
Opium?
Yeah, it doesn't say. It just said there was miscellaneous drugs in the bottom of one of the bags. There was a sword. Like, where is that today? Who got the sword? There's a sword. There was a rifle, and then I think a Derringer pistol. And these guys were assassins sent to torture and liquidate the House of Lute, according to Wong Toi, is how he explained it. So then I went and I looked it up. I'm like, what was the Tong War? Why? What was that? And because Lee Lute was sent to San Francisco to be a teacher by the Tong organization. And then there's a war that breaks out. And I think this is just between different organized crime groups. And so when it says that he got tired of just doing what he was doing, or tired of the monotony, and wanted to go try. Is that one me? It's not
Gotta
me.
be.
It's not me.
It's not me.
My goodness. What kind of a podcast are we running?
Keeping us in suspense again.
Because it would ring on my watch. And it wasn't ringing on my watch.
It was a ghost again.
Had to be me, but I don't even see where my phone is. So I look all that up, and it just doesn't make sense. I doubt he left because of the monotony. And then I found out, I looked it up. I'm like, has anybody ever made a movie or a TV show or anything? And then I found out that Netflix had started a series in 2019, and I think it's still going. And I want to say it's called Warrior. I think that's what it's called. And it's all about, it looks action-packed. And it's all about these guys that would bring in the laborers, and the money they made as laborers for the railroad would go back to that organization. And then after their first 4 or 5 months where all of their money went back to the organization, then they kept getting a big cut of everybody's pay. And so then another group would come in and try to get their thing going, and so they kind of fought over all this stuff. And anyway, so somehow Lee Lute was, the backstory of him is fascinating because, I don't know, why did they have to send 2 guys all the way out from California?
So he was sent to be a teacher in San Francisco?
Yep.
And he stopped educating. He breached his teacher contract. They
Maybe.
had to get him. They had to get him.
Maybe.
Gotta
right?
keep educating those kids.
Maybe it was the Tongs that were after him.
You wonder if he was sent here by the Tong to teach new Chinese how to speak English, so they were more marketable for laborers.
I would think they would. I would think
theory.
they wouldn't want them to learn English, because that way they could be in control even more.
Unless they learned English in order to manipulate the system.
So now I got to watch the whole series, the Netflix series. I wonder how accurate it is, but
I'm curious about the series too.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So we need to write an episode.
That's what I just think that needs to get in the right hands. That's a whole series. I don't know.
Yeah, but so does like Bill Hamilton.
There's a ton of them. That's what I was talking to my son about. I said, man, there's so many connecting people.
Yeah. It could be called Stillwater, not to be confused with the Matt Damon movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if we make it look like all it happens, it's kind of like Lawnmower, but based in the 1800s, then maybe people won't come here. He's like, dude, we're going to get murdered if we show up there. Unlike Yellowstone.
He could be like an accurate Yellowstone. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But then you could do a whole movie. You could do a whole series on the 79 Ranch or the Cardwell
I know.
Boys,
Yeah.
Or,
oh man.
Like Ambrose Brumfield, who worked at the 79. That dude was everywhere.
Yeah. There's so many stories in there. One of them from the 79 Ranch, one of the guys at the 79 tells a story. There's a nice picture of him with his wife and him. He's in a suit and they're all dressed up, and his little kid. And he tells a story of one day. What is that town just outside of Billings to the northwest?
Broadview?
No.
Lavina?
It might be Lavina, which is now there's like nothing there, right?
Broadview and Lavina are super, super small. Yeah.
I think it's Lavina. But this guy tells a story in there of how one day he's like, yeah, me and the boys from the 79, we rode out and we hung 18 rustlers in what is now Lavina in one day. And he said one of our guys had to pull up. They called it pull up a school chum, is what it says. And so one of their riders went to school with this rustler, and he balked. He was like, I can't pull this guy up, meaning they probably threw a lasso over like a tree branch or something, and then they would tie it around their saddle horn and walk that horse away and pull them, string them up. And so this guy, it says in there that this one guy didn't want to hang his school chum, and so pistols were drawn on him, and they told him, you're either going to pull him up or you're going to get pulled up with him. And then it says, so he pulled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
it's a
like-
predicament. You got to ask yourself how close you really are with that guy.
Yeah. But how crazy is that?
Yeah.
Like 18 guys got hung in Lavina that day.
Wow.
I mean, this is the Wild West around here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this was crazy.
And it's mostly unknown. I mean, we get to hear about Billy the Kid. We get to hear about
Right.
the Regulators. We hear about, Tom Horn. I mean, we hear about these people and these characters
Kid
in
Curry.
history.
Yeah.
Kid Curry.
Jesse
Like
James.
Jesse James. Like,
Yeah.
was it Sundance? Yeah, Sundance Kid was in Montana. He worked on cattle ranches
Yeah.
in Montana for
Yeah.
a while before he became, quote unquote, Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
But you hear about those in history. But then there's this whole, I mean, if all this just happened here in the Stillwater County area, what else has happened? What happened over in Sweetgrass County? What happened over up in Marr County? What happened over? I mean, we can talk about Dawson County for days. Dawson, Fallon County. I mean, the Indian Wars were
Fascinating stuff.
And that's the stuff that, without newspaper, again, I mean,
That's where everything,
The way-
most of these things were documented was journals and local
Journals and
newspapers.
local
And it's amazing
newspapers.
what was in those newspapers.
Yeah.
Big Timber. I didn't realize that Big Timber was such a kind of a rough little town.
I've heard
there's-
some wild stuff about
yeah.
Big Timber too. And isn't that where the rodeo essentially was founded? Like
I'm
the
not
first
sure.
rodeo?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I don't know.
They make that claim. I don't know if it's
Really?
yeah.
we'll have to look that up.
At least in the state. I don't know if like in
Yeah,
the nation, but
I don't know.
Wow. Well, that in conjunction, I did use that. I don't know if we talked about this earlier or not. When I was talking about, I got that account with that newspapers.com, and I started to research and be able to look up guys' names. Just crazy how you can put in their names and pull up articles and from all these little papers. And before the Stillwater News, it was the Tri-County News. I think it had like 2 or 3 different other names.
yeah, there was a Columbus paper too. I know the story that's on the front page this week is a discovery that Penny made. She found the bronze that was on the Crow Agency that had been missing since like the late 80s, early 90s.
She found what? What was?
A bronze that was on this Crow Agency monument,
Oh.
and
on
it had
the
been missing.
where the Crow Agency was there south of Absaroka.
Yeah,
I didn't
Wow.
know Penny
yeah.
found
She
it.
I gotta
found it
check
at
that out.
somebody's house.
I just talked to her. Why didn't she tell me this? Penny, you're holding out on me.
She was holding out, and she's waiting for you to read the Stillwater County News.
It comes out tomorrow morning.
It's out.
Wow.
It was out this morning.
It's today. Today's
Yeah,
Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh, my days are so messed up. I still haven't been home long enough to
Yeah, so you've had a long day.
figure it out. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe is that a thing where you could do like a feature? Like if you like literally that book it's the Bible of this area.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I think it'd be interesting to do like.
Could you do a feature of one of those old stories?
I think it'd be neat to do that like a couple times a year.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
To just highlight somebody from the book
Yeah.
and see what kind of deep dive you could do.
Yeah.
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 Or like even like you could feature different areas of the county. Like you could have a bunch of Bradley's Journal when they recruited the Crow to be scouts, looking for Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, or stuff on the 79 Ranch, or or Old Wheat Basin stuff out there. I mean, there's just so much cool history around here. Calamity Jane hanging out with countrymen.
Yeah. Chief
Calamity
Plenty
Jane
Coup.
got she got around in Fergus County as well.
Yeah, I think she was about everywhere. I think she had a little house over on the north side of Billings somewhere too that she hung out at for quite a while. But yeah, just so much cool stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 100 years from now, we're gonna regress and everything will be on microfiche again, and we'll find old Stillwater County News stuff from
Hope we'll have
stuff
a better
that Charlie wrote.
documentary than Microfiche.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It holds
man.
up. It holds up.
It does.
Yeah, man. You have now that we're really thinking about it, talking about it. I mean, you already knew this, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, you have a big responsibility.
Well, it's fun to talk to you guys. You both have such a passion for history, and not just history, but history of this area too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. And we talk about it for days. And a lot of it comes from like my high school history teacher here in Columbus, Jim Hicks.
Who was that?
Jim Hicks.
Jim Hicks.
Yeah, he was my high school history teacher, and that guy, I mean, whatever he taught, he was passionate about. It didn't matter. He taught all sorts of different history in high school, but he had a psychology class too, Montana history, world history. I mean, a lot of it, but the way he taught stuff like that, it just, man, I love that. And like even my 5th grade teacher, well, Dannon Johannes was my 5th grade teacher.
Oh, really?
He's got pictures of me. I mean, this is how much of a history nerd I am. He's got pictures of me reading the damn social studies book when we had like free reading.
That's awesome.
So I mean, even as early as 5th grade, I was reading about history stuff. So I don't know, just because there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like most history teachers, and I'm glad you had a good one. I talk to so many people who are like, oh, you know, I don't know, people who have said to me, even because I go on these tangents and stuff, they're like, oh, you should have been a history teacher or something. But I feel like history teachers haven't been doing it justice somehow. I don't know why, but like so many people are just like, and you know, history was boring to them. But then, and people who have said, oh, history was always boring to them, but when you tell them the stories and, you know, and you're passionate about it and you're not just rattling off dates and whatever, people are interested in it. Everybody is interested in history because as humans, I feel like anybody and everybody is interested in a good story. And basically a history teacher standing up there at the front of the class, he's basically like, if you were to just go back, you know, he's filling the role of how elders would sit around a campfire at night telling others the history, and the younger ones the history, or what happened, and how they would pass on the knowledge of things in this way. And that's where I feel like that's what a history teacher's real job is. Like, no, you're standing around the campfire in this room, and you're teaching them the history of where we came from and how we got to this point. And it's not treated as such. You're not passing on this knowledge. You're just checking boxes.
Yeah, and I think too many people, like we talked about this today, me and the history teacher in Park City when we went there for their PIR day, since they start school on Monday. But too many people, and I think teachers in general, especially now, they teach to the test. I'm teaching you this stuff so you can take a test. And I'm teaching you because I have to get this block done by this amount of time. How is that fun and exciting for anybody? And it's no fault of the teachers, I don't think.
It's
I just
think
think
it's structured.
It's how the education structure in America has become.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not about you and I being taught all this information so we can form opinions, and because of the way because I have all this information, I digest it, now I have an opinion over here, that's going to kind of drive how I become a successful adult. Now we just try to teach to the test and try to teach to this block because we have to get through it, because that's what the standards say we have to do, and so I'm glad I didn't go down that route to be a teacher, and at the same time,
because it's limiting.
But I think history teachers still have that capability of making it like we're sitting around the campfire and passing on this information generation to generation, because as far as structure goes in the education world, history is the broadest. Like, you have your standards in math and science and English and some of that, but if you look at the standards for history, and I learned a lot of this today, as a matter of fact, it's so cool how all this works. The standards are pretty broad, really. And so I just think that the educators have become so programmed across the board that we have to teach to the test and teach to the block that we forget that, we can still teach like we're around the campfire and passing on this valuable information. So,
yeah, and I think everybody is interested in it. You'll have people that say they aren't, but when you see that there are these YouTube channels where you'll find that, oh, this guy's got like 4 million or 6 million followers on YouTube, and they're just telling a story. These are people that are just telling a story. Like, they don't even have footage of what happened. I've come across these things where you're like, oh, the thumbnail, it looks like you're going to actually like watch video of something crazy that happened in some war zone or something else. But you'll go there and it's just the telling of a big long story, and they're just a good storyteller, and people gravitate to that. And I think we all do. Everybody gravitates toward a good story, and that's what history should be. telling a good story. Not all of it is a good story, but anyway, in that way, I feel that everybody is interested in it.
Yeah.
I see so many who act like they're not, but they just haven't had it presented in the right way, or whatever. Anyway, but you as a newspaper guy, you're kind of a historian. I mean, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're reporting on what just happened. If it's not that it happened, a long time ago, it was recent, but you're a documentarian and basically a historian. You're documenting and telling the story of what's happening around us.
And why it's important.
Yeah.
Why we should pay attention to it. And I think that's one of the biggest, challenges, but also one of the best opportunities, especially for like history teachers too. Like, if you know why it's important, then you can help the students understand why it's important. And it can be kind of, there's a bit of an inferior, or what do you call it? Stumble on my words here now. Imposter syndrome.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm new here. Like, who am I to tell people like what they should be paying attention to?
Right.
But
yeah, I can see that.
and that's kind of tricky sometimes, because I just feel like the job is very massive for this county, and I have to pay attention to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I got to break it down, and I've got to tell
figure
people.
out what are the priorities. Is that
Yeah.
kind of a thing of like, what takes
Mhm.
priority here? What is actually what I think is important, but I got this much room to put this all in here, and what kind of takes priority? Is
Yeah.
that some of it?
And I think a big part of that for me, like on Thursdays, is stillness, because you got to stop and you got to collect yourself, and you got to say like, okay, like there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on every week, but you got to ask yourself like, what's really important? Like, what do people really need to know about right now? And I also have to ask myself like, what's possible? Because if I just try to do everything, then I'm gonna burn out.
Yeah.
And that's a weird feeling when you just lose that passion, you lose that interest. And history teachers, everybody, when they are burnt out, you feel it, you know it, and then it's a burden on everybody else, because they're not going to get the quality that they deserve.
Yeah.
So I try to like kind of brush off that any kind of like whatever that would be. I guess I try to start over every week, and because you can't work ahead. I've tried to work ahead, but something always comes up. It's the news. It's impossible to predict.
Yeah. I bet.
So that's I kind of laugh at that. Like, so, you make your plans and God laughs.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
This is kind of a basic question, but like, where does your paper get printed?
The paper gets printed actually in Bozeman, and most newspapers get printed in Bozeman now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's
Yeah,
weird
they've
because
got a major print shop.
does the Gazette prints their own, right?
Yeah, the Gazette prints
But
their
we
own.
send our stuff 100 miles down the road to print.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
So when do you have
it
to
used
have
to be
your
Livingston.
when do you have to have your stuff in then so it can get to Bozeman?
Well, Wednesday morning, usually around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
They print all those papers in less than 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Well, and there's a handful of papers that come out on Wednesday. I mean, we're a weekly that comes out on Thursdays, which I like that schedule. My old weekly would come out on Wednesdays, and I had to design it myself too.
Oh, dang.
That's why the Boulder job was so intense, because I had to start working on Sundays. I didn't really have a full weekend, and that sucked, especially being a musician and stuff, because I'd have
Oh, yeah.
Saturday
You'd have a
and
gig
stuff,
Saturday
and
night.
yeah, there was like no time to just put the feet up.
Huh. That's interesting.
But yeah, Bozeman, their print shop is very busy.
Oh, I bet. Wow.
So is it all sent over digitally and then they just print it?
Yeah, it's all sent over in PDFs.
So no more printing presses.
And then they just send it over on a truck or something, or how does that get back over here?
Yeah, they send it over. There's a bunch of drivers.
Wow. See, this is the stuff I never think about.
No, you Your paper shows
yeah,
up.
see the paper, and you grab it and you read it,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, there's still, I think there was one day that the paper came in late because there was some kind of miscommunication, and so people got their paper on Fridays. I heard about that. But it's pretty rare for there to be any issues.
Yeah.
Huh.
God,
That's interesting.
Paper's been there Thursday morning for as long as I've been alive. I mean, it just, I've never really thought about it either, where it's printed, how it gets here. So that's cool. So is music your escape from the, like, to reset and stuff from the job? Is that where that comes from, or?
I think I could pick up the guitar and go all kinds of places. So
Yeah.
it is kind of a really nice release.
Yeah.
So where did that come from? Where did the background when did you start into that? When did you pick up a guitar and get serious?
When I was in junior high, I was really into Super Nintendo.
Yeah?
Remember the Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
SNES. And my dad was like annoyed by it. He was like, "You're not going to have actual life experiences. You know,
Yeah.
You're down here.
Yeah.
Even if I had friends come over, it's like you're not having an experience. You're just sitting there, playing video games."
And now people would, if you were playing video game, people from all over the world will sit there and watch you live stream video
Well, it's funny. You
games.
can't make that argument anymore, but
Wow.
You could in like 97. Yeah.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you a 007 guy for the Super
I couldn't
Nintendo?
really get into the 007.
What?
I remember when that came out.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and my friends were really into that, and we would do the 4 controllers and everything. And I was into it for a little bit, but not as much. I was more into like NBA Live 96. I think that was my favorite game. And Mortal Kombat.
Something
I
along
like that. And
you know,
Killer Instinct.
Mm-hmm.
something along that. I just have to jump over and tell you this funny, stupid little thing really quick along those lines, though, is that because you were like saying how 97, yeah, you wouldn't think like people would be able to just like make a huge living off of playing video games. But I was a post on X, Elon Musk put out a meme or something, and it showed like 90s teachers, and it had a quote saying, "'Cause you won't always have a calculator in your pocket." And anyway, and I can't remember what else it said about that, but it just showed a goofy picture of 90s teachers saying that, like, and yet nowadays, like that,
You
like
got a
how much,
calculator in your pocket.
yeah. None of us go anywhere without something that, could send you to the moon.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So my dad made that argument with me, and he said that if I wanted to meet girls and have great life experiences,
Smart
and
guy.
even get in trouble, that I should play guitar. And he hooked me up with a guitar teacher.
Hey, your dad didn't steer you wrong, did he?
No, he didn't steer me wrong at all. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
I got into it pretty quick, honestly, because I just started with guitar lessons, and then he brought home Zeppelin 1.
Oh,
Put that on, and then I got really into Zeppelin. And then I was really into like the 90s grunge and all that stuff too.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I just, started playing with some friends, and they're still friends to this day.
that's awesome.
And I've been playing with people for 30 years or so almost.
Damn.
Wow.
So did you
Yeah.
sing in school and stuff too? And
Yeah, I was in choir and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
it's taken a while to like really develop my voice, and I mess around
yeah.
with some stuff here and there. But Ray Charles blew my mind. Like when I was in college, early college, I started listening to Ray Charles and Johnny Cash, and like what they did with songs, how they made them their own, it just blew my mind. So I started like changing the way I would perform covers, and then the way I would view my own original songs, and kind of not just sing, but kind of share an experience with the song, and really just give it a treatment that kind of shows how much passion there is in the song, and
Yeah.
brings that out.
Yeah,
Right on.
that's awesome. Yeah, man. I think the whole gist is making people feel something. That's it. If you can make them feel something.
Yep.
It kind of goes back to journalism that way too, right? Because it's like, what's the point of doing it if you're not feeling something out of it?
Yeah.
I mean, people know when you're feeling it or not.
Yeah. People,
Yeah.
know,
Whether-
people know if you're faking it. That's
Yeah,
for damn sure.
exactly.
Yep.
So,
No, that's true.
so when were you in your first band then?
I was in freshman year of high school. Amanda Salazar's birthday party was her first gig. Remember that?
You remember her name? Huh?
Yeah.
Hey, his first gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Maple Street. I remember that well. Yeah, The Speed of Color. That was her name.
That was the name of your band. That kind of sounds like a 90s grunge band.
Yeah.
It kind of does.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Speed of Color. Kind of has an LSD ring to it,
Yeah,
too.
it
A little
does.
bit,
That's
right?
kind of what
Yeah,
I
we were
think
a little
about
young
little
for
bit.
that. But yeah, that was probably what we were going for.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I played in another band after that, and then I played bass in a band in high school. And
I love that it goes back to your dad being like, "That's not how you get chicks. Let me
yeah,
show you how you get chicks."
and then I met my wife at open mic.
That's,
He
it
wasn't
worked.
wrong.
So your dad,
Yeah,
That was
he
some-
wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
that's some foreshadowing right there.
Yeah. There were some other girls I met through music that he did not like, and he might have wondered
Yeah.
himself. He was like, "Did I do the right thing?"
Right.
Yeah. So do you prefer being in a band or doing like your solo sets, acoustic stuff?
Right now, I feel like I've got like the perfect mix.
Really?
Because I've got, I can do solo gigs, I can do duo, trio, or I can do full band. So, like, whatever the occasion needs, I
Yeah.
can supply.
So I feel out of the loop here, though. And have you done any gigs here in town yet?
I did the Brewfest for the
Okay.
museum.
Oh, you opened for El Wencho, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys are great.
They are
Huh.
awesome.
Yeah. They're hilarious. And then I played Absorki Days.
Okay. Wow, man, I'm out of the loop lately.
And then aren't you going to play at the brewery?
And I played the brewery just like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, okay.
And then they're doing an open mic on September 16th, and I'm looking forward to that because I haven't met like a lot of the musicians in the area, so I'm looking forward to meeting. There's some young guys doing some country
Yeah.
music. They're
Yeah,
sounding pretty
Cooper.
good. Yeah,
Cooper was playing at the...
he was at the farmers
At the
market.
farmers
yeah,
market tonight.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
sounding good.
Yeah, good. I know you need to talk to JT at the meadery, because I know he's starting to want to do open mic nights.
Oh, cool.
And stuff like that. So he was even talking about doing. We'll have to get JT in here to
Yeah.
visit with him. But I think he was talking about like doing a battle of the bands. Like you just do an open mic night, and then
Oh, that'd be
whoever
fun.
gets like the loudest applause throughout the night gets this like rotating trophy. But then the thing is, you got to come back next open mic and retain your trophy, or it gets given to somebody else. Type
Oh,
of
that's
thing.
a good idea.
Just something kind of fun
Yeah.
to bring people in. That place is great. JT's a great guy.
Wow.
I kind of
Nice.
like Mead.
I like that, like friendly competition, because
Yeah.
it forces you to bring your A game too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll have to get them in here.
So have you ever recorded anything?
Yeah.
Have
I've got an album that I recorded in Nashville.
No way.
Yeah, I got some buddies out in Nashville when I was in Kentucky. I had a friend, this this guy, Hambone, is what they called him, and he was given that name by like an old, like old like blues Delta blues playing guy
Yeah.
named Curtis Crawford,
Oh,
who
that
just looked the part. You know?
sounds like
He
it.
looked like Mark Twain. He was always like well dressed and he had this big white beard. And he gave the guy the name Hambone. And he was playing a show at the Rudyard Kipling in Louisville. And one of the guys on the bill was this dude Justin and his friend Jamie. And they were in this band called Quote out of Nashville. And I just loved their sound. And we hit it off right away. We became good buddies. And then Justin produced my album in Nashville at his place. He had a studio in his garage, and he was in the band Humming House, and they're a great Nashville group. They don't really do much anymore. Every once in a while they do, but
Yeah.
they had a song on like the Justified soundtrack, and
Okay.
they had some great. They had a good run in Nashville. Now he's got 2 kids, and he's more in the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But
I've been trying to get my wife to watch that series.
It's a great series.
yeah, I love that series.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I'm glad they brought it back. That was a
Yeah.
pretty good.
I haven't seen
last
any of the
season.
new ones.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Do you?
Yeah, they just take him to Detroit. And
Oh,
make it it's a little different,
yeah.
but it works.
Huh. So where can we find your album?
It's on Spotify and everywhere you stream music. It's called Whispers of the Lonely.
Nice.
7 tracks.
Dude, that's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. It's 6 originals and then a John Prine cover.
Nice.
And I've got a lot of new originals that I haven't put on an album yet, but I've been meaning to get back to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
I've got I would say I'd have
I wish
some
I'd have
in the
known
works.
that. I would have had some kind of a setup right here. And we'd have been playing songs.
Nice. You can still put a song on there or something.
See how I can. You know what? Let me work on that.
So how long did you do the Nashville thing at all then, or just go down there to record? Or?
I was living in Lexington. That's where I went to college. So I was like probably like 3 hours from Nashville.
Oh, okay.
So I would just go down there sometimes for the weekends, and I was actually living in Glendive when I recorded the album, and I just flew out there for a week, and I thought about moving to Nashville before I took the job in Lewistown, and I just decided like I didn't want to leave Montana.
Yeah.
I didn't feel secure to leave journalism and try to like bartend or something to make a go of it, because I had some friends that were having some success in Nashville, and I had more friends that weren't. Yeah.
I'd like to know the statistics for everybody that moves to Nashville. How many actually make it?
Yeah, I'd like to know that too. A friend of mine, he said it best. When he moved to Nashville, like right before he moved to Nashville, he was playing a gig. It was kind of like his farewell gig in Lexington, and he said, I saw a classified ad in the Tennessean for a white guy with an acoustic guitar.
That's funny.
Yeah, and there's just so many of them, and I think it's more about luck than it is about talent.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
I know, like Austin, Texas has become a pretty big spot now too for like up and coming musicians.
Yeah. I think Austin is cooler. I think Austin has a little more camaraderie involved. And I've got a buddy who is in the band Uncle Lucius.
Dude, I love that music.
Right. I love those guys too. Yeah. And he was just playing a gig in Lexington, and they were on the same bill. And the singer just loved what he was doing on the keyboards. Yeah. And so left him a note and was like, move to Austin and be in our band.
That's cool.
And he did it. And then they broke up. And then they blew up because they had a song in Yellowstone, and they had a song on some K-pop girls playlist.
Oh, really?
And then the band just ended up getting back together and having the best tour of their lives. And I saw my buddy Johnny for the first time in 15 years last summer in Helena.
Right on.
It's cool.
Yeah. Yellowstone's put a lot of people on the map, that show. Lainey Wilson.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I didn't realize she got.
Well, so she had a song on season 2 of Yellowstone, and then she started getting super popular. We saw her we went up to Great Falls to go watch her at the Newberry.
Oh, nice. How is the Newberry?
The Newberry is probably, I would say it's probably my favorite music venue in Montana. Great Falls did a phenomenal job with the Newberry. Cool. It's cool.
We gotta go.
As far as outdoor stuff, the old saloon in
I haven't been to the old saloon yet either.
In Prey is the old saloon is. If you need to go watch a concert there, it's awesome.
Who did you see at Old Saloon?
So we've seen Ian Munsick there, and then we saw shit. Now I'm drawing a blank. In Hell Be Good Company. Who sings that? It's that trio. Oh, come on. Damn it, now I gotta look it up. Because I know I'm killing myself, because they're one of my, I listen to them constantly. The Dead South. Have you heard of the Dead South?
No, I gotta check them out.
Dude, if you like raspy, bluegrassy stuff.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
They're great. They come to Montana every once in a while. Nice. I actually think they're out of Canada. The Dead South.
The Dead South.
But they're great. They're great live.
Actually, I have heard their song, because In Hell I'll Be in Good Company is on one of my playlists.
There you go.
Yeah. So I know it.
They don't have a bad song, and them live in concert, they are great.
Nice.
But yeah, the Old Saloon is really good outdoor venue.
I know Steve Earle was just there.
Yep,
I was thinking about going, was just there.
Kip Moore was in Billings on Sunday night.
Oh yeah.
So we had some friends go. We didn't go. And it's cool that we're starting to get some more music in Montana too. More
it's
people
pretty
are
awesome.
coming up here.
Kettle House is great too. We went to Ziggy Marley there last.
Oh
month.
really?
Yeah. My stepdaughter's really into Ziggy Marley.
That's sweet.
And I grew up with Bob Marley, man. I love him. So it was a great show.
Dude, my daughter's been watching that Bob Marley movie like twice a day.
Oh really?
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. So now we're playing reggae in the house all the time right now. But Yeah. And then the Babcock in Billings is really good too.
Yeah, I like the Babcock. Yeah.
We saw Priscilla Block there earlier. Was it last year? We saw Priscilla Block down there, and my wife's been down there 3 or 4 different times.
Nice. We saw Citizen Cope there.
Yeah.
And that was kind of fun. He's awesome. But he had kind of a rough night there because there were people talking over him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he was just kind of funny because he just stopped his song. He's like, there's people catching up on life up here. People who pay good money come out to the show. You guys can catch up later.
Yeah. But I'm real big on the smaller venue stuff for music. It's
Me too.
Kind of more my style.
Have you seen a show at Jimmy's Roadhouse? That's a cool venue, just out in Red Lodge. It's just like a dude's garage.
Really?
It's just like super intimate.
No, I haven't.
Tom Catmull, a Missoula guy, he played there recently and went to his show. He's a buddy.
We've actually seen some good music at the Beer Stube up at Red Lodge Mountain during ski season.
Oh, really?
You should try to play there this ski season.
What's it called?
The Beer Stube. It's the bar at the base of the mountain.
Yeah.
But they have music, like they have a whole series where they'll bring in, God, I want to say it's on Sundays maybe. Maybe it's on Saturdays, but they'll start playing at 2. If it's like not super cold, you'll play outside. But if it's cold, they'll put you inside and like we're inside the Beer Stube there. But
nice.
It's cool. It's cool to go to a mountain and ski and go have a couple of beers, take a break and listen to some tunes live.
Yeah.
It's really good. They've had some good people there.
Usually have pretty good crowds there.
Yeah. Red Lodge. Are you a skier?
I haven't in a while, but I like to ski.
Yeah, we our whole family skis, snowboards, so we're up there a lot. I mean, we have season passes and stuff for the mountain. So
yeah, I'd love to go. My stepson loves to snowboard too.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I've got so Shasta and my youngest, my 6-year-old, she snowboards, and then Zoe and I ski.
Cool. I met Zoe today too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kimber does whatever. She used to snowboard, but now she's kind of like, I'm 17. I got cooler things to do than hang out with the parents and go to the Red Lodge Mountain. So.
All right, tell me again what to search for.
If you search my name, my album will come up, and then I've got to put some more stuff on there. I'm gonna start recording.
And what was the album name again?
But it's Whispers of the Lonely.
God, that's a cool name.
That's one of the tracks, and that track came. Actually, I wrote the chorus at a laundromat.
Really?
Yeah, and then the verses came later in Glendive.
That's so cool.
Okay, I found it right here. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna play Whispers of the Lonely.
Nice.
What happened?
You think you're gonna play it?
It's wigging out on me.
It was funny. That song, it kind of was a warning, just like the Boulder Monitor job, where it's about this girl who. Yeah.
Whoops! It's not playing through where I want it to play through. Hold on,
I can hear
second.
it though.
I can.
Yeah, but it's not coming through it should be coming through that.
It's about this girl who was a musician, really talented, amazing singer, but she was strung out as fuck.
Yeah.
And she'd lived with and played with several different musicians in town. And I thought, oh, well, she can stay with me and we'll make it work. You know, we won't have problems. It was just the same shit. And she kept picking up an instrument from all these people. She left this one dude and got his banjo, or a banjo of his, from him. And then when she left me, she ended up with one of my guitars.
Oh, so this is a real chick.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that makes this even better.
This song is the real deal.
I'm putting it on my playlist right now. My country playlist is probably 17 hours now, but I can't.
Nice one.
And I just go. You wrote it in 2012?
Yes, I wrote that song.
Wow.
I think I wrote that song in like 2000. Well, I wrote the chorus in like 2008, and then I finished up the song like in 2009, and then
recorded
in Nashville in 2011. And the album came out February 2012.
That is so cool.
And that was fun. I had a CD release party at the Beaver Creek Brewery in Webo, and the guy
that
there,
place.
he co-wrote a couple of the songs. My buddy Jim Devine.
So I took pictures of that for him.
Really?
Crazy story. I went to Eastern Montana just to get away for like 6 days. And I started, I went over to Glendive, camped out with some friends of mine at their house. We went to the Terry Badlands and went to where Evelyn Cameron took her pictures on those rocks that go out. Did you ever go there?
I have once, yeah.
So we went out there, took pictures, and then I spent 2 days in Makoshika hitting the sunrise and sunset. Got some really, nice. And then went down to Webo, and I didn't even know there was a brewery there. And I was driving through town on my way to go to Red Rocks or Medicine Rocks, and saw it out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, yeah, I got to go. So I pulled in there, and they had just opened. It was like 11:50.
Oh, wow.
So I went in there, and it was him and one of his bartenders and me. And we just got to bullshitting, the three of us. And I was like, yeah, I'm out here just kind of chilling, getting away from work for about a week, and I'm going to take pictures and everything like that. And he's like, you take some pictures in here for me? I'm like, yeah. So I've got them on my computer somewhere, bunch of pictures of the setup when you inside there, the restaurant on the other side there, and then one beer turned into like 4. So I was like, well, I got to sit here so I can make sure I can drive. So I ended up hanging out there just bullshitting with him for like 5-6 hours, and then they told me about the ghost town Carlisle down towards in between. Was it past Baker? I don't know, but there's an old ghost town called Carlisle, and then there's an old church down there that was super cool. So I took pictures of all that stuff, and then I ended up at I spent 2 days at Medicine Rock State Park.
Medicine Rocks are awesome,
dude.
Man.
So I sold one of my first pictures from Medicine Rocks, and then I sold a picture that turned into a billboard.
Oh, wow.
And it's of a sunset at Medicine Rocks.
Cool.
So that was pretty cool. And then I went down to Broadus. Oh, I went over to Capitol Rock. You ever been there?
Mm-mm.
So you go down to Webo or Ekalaka, and then you hang a left, and you're actually on the North Dakota-Montana border, and there's this rock that looks like the White House.
Really?
It's called Capitol Rock. Yeah. And so I took a bunch of pictures. The lighting was shit because it was the wrong time of day, but I didn't want to stay there for the night, so I went over to Broadus, and then went down to Alzada, went to Broadus, and then went back up the Powder River, and I had some really cool sunsets there along the Powder River, and then sold another picture that turned into a billboard from the Powder River area over there. So that trip was super awesome. I was able to sell a bunch of pictures from that trip, but the bar, the Beaver Creek Saloon the brewery was a highlight of the trip. So
that's so awesome. You hung out with Big Jim.
Yeah. And I think he was a cop for a while. So
he was a social worker for a little while. Was he the really tall dude? Or Jason? Was it Jason?
Is it Jason?
Yeah.
He's kind of the bigger guy?
No, Jason was he's the guy with the black hair. He used to be a cop.
I don't know. Maybe one of the guys I talked to was a cop for a bit.
Yeah, I think it was Jason. And Jason played drums.
Okay.
Too. For Jim's band.
Yeah.
And they played drums. Jim and I co-wrote a bunch of tunes together.
Yeah, because they were leaving to go over to North Dakota to play a gig that night.
Yeah, so it must have been Jim and Jason.
Yeah.
That were there. That's wild.
Well, I wonder if you were playing with them when they headed over to North Dakota that night.
I don't think so. I don't think so, but because when I left Glendive, I mean, Jim and I would still get together and play.
Yeah.
Sometimes in some I go to the Beaver Creek Brewery and join them, but I didn't do much traveling with them outside of just going back to Eastern Montana and playing a gig.
Yeah, because they were going over to North Dakota that night to play a gig, I remember. But yeah, it was cool. That's a cool place.
Yeah,
really cool place.
That was like Beaver Creek Brewery and Makoshika. Those were my two hangs in Glendive.
All right, we're going to check out Whispers of the Lonely.
By Charlie Denison.
By Charlie Denison, sitting here in studio.
God, this is so cool to me.
And it's good artwork. Good artwork.
Yeah.
A friend I grew up with made that. And that's in Makoshika, the artwork.
I haven't even seen the artwork. What?
Is it not cooperating now?
There it is. Yeah, I got it.
You got it. Yeah, that's Makoshika.
Yeah, it is Makoshika. So, a small world altogether. One of the photographers I went to Africa with shot a music video for Cameron Marlowe.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he's down in Nashville. He's a wedding photographer down in Nashville, and he did he's friends with Cameron Marlowe.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, it's a small world creatively.
Yeah.
Creatively speaking. Really.
you remember what the song was called?
No, I don't know which one. I'll find out. I'll message him and then I'll let you know. But
oh, you mentioned that song Strangers, or that movie Strangers.
Yeah.
Because that's that Cameron Marlowe, the song that popped up with Strangers. And
there it goes.
I watched that movie with my grandmother.
No way.
Yeah, because I knew my dad told me that she really liked horror movies and stuff. So I thought, oh, we'll get a horror movie, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
That was a terrible choice. She hated that movie. So did I.
All right, now I'm going to be able to get it to play here.
Okay.
Whispers of the Lonely by Charlie Denison. And I like that there's a count in, because that's going to help me in post.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it's my
Trials
buddy
of
John.
sorrow and a case of woe. Double a heartache, a few drags of lows. If I lift my head up, I can see the exit sign. It's too late and too long since I even tried. This town won't care for the lonely.
God, that's like real country. That is so good.
The lonely know that
April's
it's
gonna love this.
unfair. Crowded in a corner, singing sad, sad songs from the souls of the lonely that still carry on. Broken bar on Woodland, broken ass.
This has almost an Iron and Wine.
Stumble and I
Heard
stagger
of it.
Wine.
when she
Guys,
comes
makes me think of Iron and Wine.
tried to kind of keep it organic.
We're
A little
close to nothing. Said she's
Ray
living
LaMontagne.
on the street.
Ray LaMontagne is one of my faves.
Asked me for a favor, said she'll leave in a few weeks. This town won't care for the lonely, and the lonely know that it's unfair. Crowded in a corner, singing sad, sad songs from the souls
And that's my buddy
of the
Hambo when I'm the
lonely.
lead.
But still carry on.
Hambo.
That is so cool. That's you?
That's Hambo.
Oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Talked about Grant Parsons like he was a man she knew. If she would have met him, wouldn't change her tone. We're singing songs on Sundays as the people pass us by. Our voices only whispers like a distant lover's cry. This town won't care for the lonely.
How long did it take you to write this?
And
this
the
song
lonely know that
It's kind of
it's
interesting
unfair.
because, like I said, I wrote the chorus in the laundromat while I was working with the girls about. And then I wrote the verses in one sitting one morning at my girlfriend's house in Glendive. Like all three verses just right there.
Boom, came out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That still carry on.
So is it the same way, like when I'm taking a picture or something like that of like an animal or a landscape or something, and like you just hit that shutter and you're like, damn, I nailed it. Is that like you just sit down and you're like,
Yeah.
and you're just like, damn, I nailed it? Is that the same thing?
Yeah,
Is it?
I mean, sometimes it just happens that way.
Yeah.
You know, you're lucky, right? Like,
Yeah.
because it doesn't always happen that way.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when it does, you know.
Yeah.
And it was definitely like that with this song. Like with the chorus, it was like that. I was like, I know this is something, but I didn't know exactly like what it was going to be. And I felt like I needed some time to separate myself from that situation because I was in it at
Yeah.
that moment. And so when I had this time to reflect, and then those verses just came, I was like, no, that's it.
That is cool.
That is cool, man. Yeah.
I'm glad you guys dig it.
I can't
mean,
wait.
that's the
I can't wait
type-
to show it to April.
That's the type of shit I listen to on a
Yeah.
on a daily though.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm a big Tris Munsick and the Innocents fan.
Cool. I like them a lot,
love-
man.
Love those guys. The Munsick boys, when all of them and their dad are playing. I mean, if it's got a fiddle in it and it's got a bluesy feel to it, I'm happy. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that you'd see playing at an old bar or something like that smells like stale cigarette smoke. You're sipping on a little bourbon. I mean, I'm not smoking the cigarette, but I'll damn sure sip the bourbon.
And that's kind of the feel I was going for in
There
that
you
song
go.
too, because the first 2 verses take place in dive bars.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good stuff, man.
Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
first verse was kind of, I was thinking of the Oasis in Glendive, and the second verse was Lina's Pub in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah. That is cool, man.
Yeah.
I know. We should figure it out. Get you in here playing. We'll work out all the bugs ahead of time.
That'd be a blast.
play through the mixer.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll set up a evening recording session in our humble
Nice.
little
Before
studio.
you get on your sailboat,
Ah.
when are you thinking you're going to be taking off? Anyway, you have a timeline?
I don't. I'm waiting for somebody to buy our house. I got a lot of loose ends around here to take care of. But yeah, hopefully in the next couple months.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and it's a process also it's like buying a house. Like to close on a boat is a big long process.
Mhm.
So it'll be a lot of research on that, traveling out to go see some different ones, and you got to get it surveyed, get somebody to take it out of the water and check it all over. When they do a survey, they take it out of the water, they inspect the whole thing, but they also take it out for a day of sailing, and they run it through all the paces. So it will go through all of that, and then it's making an offer and all the other process. So it's kind of a big process, and yeah, it's not like buying a car. It's like you have a closing date, and hopefully everything works out. So
And then you got to become a captain.
Yeah,
then I
learn
got
how
to
to
figure
drive it.
Then I got to figure that out. Yeah, how do I drive this thing? Yeah,
You're gonna be like Captain Ron.
Yeah. we just
10
watched that
years.
for the first time since the '90s.
Oh,
We
funny.
watched that a few weeks ago. We were like,
How's it hold up?
It kind of holds up. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
You watched Captain Ron, and I watched Tombstone. So we were on like a Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
thing.
nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
When I was at training in Bozeman earlier this week, I was like, there's really not a whole lot to do here. When I got to, I can't really go out because I got to be up and go to class and pay attention. So they had Tombstone on. They had a couple good movies on. But yeah,
Tombstone's a
Kurt
good Western, man.
Yeah.
Tombstone's a great Western.
And then we actually watched, I don't know why, we watched Romancing the Stone.
Really?
Oh,
You ever seen
funny.
on that one?
Danny DeVito,
Danny DeVito
Yeah,
and
Michael Douglas. Kathleen Turner.
Yes.
I've been meaning to rewatch that, and I haven't. in a long time.
It holds up.
Does it?
Yeah,
We'll have to check that out.
It does hold up. It's
Nice.
pretty good. I mean, anyway, it does. I was actually, I don't think April had ever even seen it.
Mm.
And so we watched, I was like, you got to see Romancing the Stone. So we watched it because we were actually trying to think of boat names.
Mm.
And it made me,
Is this before you showed me the?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were thinking about, I was just telling her how, oh yeah, like in this movie, he names the boat after the character, the heroine in her books, because she was an author, and at the end of the movie, do you remember that where they split up? He goes and
I
dives
remember
in
she
after
was an
to go
author,
chase.
and it was kind of like the romance novel vibe, but I don't remember it well.
Right at the end, they're in like Colombia or wherever they're at. I can't remember where they're at. But the alligator, crocodile swallows that guy's hand. The guy held the big jewel in his hand, and this big crocodile comes over and takes his hand off at the end of the movie. And then, so right at the end, he's like, "Hey, I'll catch up with you. I gotta go after that crocodile." So he dives off of this like old Spanish fort into the bay, and then it cuts back to New York City, and she's just like. And her editor is sitting there. And she's like, and she's in tears, and she's like reading the end of this book, and because she now put it into a book, and she was like, she reads the ending, and then anyway, she's like, and then that was it. That was the last you saw of him, and she's like, he said he'd find me, and then anyway, so at the end of the movie, she is walking down the street, downtown New York City, and there's all of a sudden a huge sailboat on a semi truck, and she looks up, and it's him, and he puts his foot up, and he's got these crocodile skin boots, alligator skin boots. Anyway, and the name of the boat was the Angelina, because that was the chick in her books. Anyway, so they And then that's when they start the second movie, Jewel of the Nile. They're on that boat and they've been sailing around the world together. Then the second movie starts. But they, whoever it is, blows their boat up right at the beginning of the second movie. Sorry to ruin that. Spoiler for Jewel of the Nile.
I'm sure most people have seen it. They should have.
Yeah, well, I hope that you don't have any kind of Jewel now situation.
I hope I don't either. Yeah.
I don't know. But pirates are kind of fascinating. I'm reading a book right now about pirates and the whole down there in the Bahamas.
What are you reading?
It's called Black Flags and Blue Waters.
Dude, I'm halfway through that book right now.
No way.
I read it every night.
That's wild.
I actually bought the book. I mean, I didn't download it. I bought the book.
I'm on Kindle right now.
You did not buy that book.
I'm reading it every night right now.
Oh shit.
That's amazing.
Right now I'm right at the part where Stephen Bonnet is got a pardon, but then decided to go back out, and they started to basically be pirates again. And Blackbeard has ripped all the other guys off, left them marooned, and now Stephen Bonnet they captured him again or something like that. Like he's just got captured, and anyway, that's where I'm at. Is that where are you at? Are you that far?
I'm trying to remember. I read it so much while I was on the airports traveling, and I'm trying to remember where I'm at.
It's a good book.
I'm pretty close to the same spot.
Yeah.
Pretty close. I don't think they've recaptured him yet.
Yeah.
So okay,
no spoiler.
Well,
sorry.
They just issued it. They just issued him the pardon.
That's so funny that you and I are both reading this book.
That's incredible.
Oh my gosh.
That is hilarious.
So how I went on a deep dive about 19th century Montana. Right. I've been doing a deep dive on pirates as well. And last year, a couple years ago, I read it's a good one called Republic of the Pirates. And that was super good too. It's covering a lot of the same stuff and a lot of the same guys as in this book. But that was so I've reread that one again just recently for the second time because I wanted to know places, names, and things. So when we're out traveling around, I can be like, oh, hey, this time, blah blah blah. I can just rattle off the interesting things of.
Rackham was here.
Yeah, Jack Rackham. Yeah, I've been reading up on all those. Did you watch Black Sails?
Oh yeah, I watch it once a year.
Oh wow, okay.
So
yeah, I've only seen it through one time, but wow.
No, I've watched it.
Have you ever seen Black Sails?
Dude,
I gotta watch it.
We gotta get on the pirate train, man.
It's a good series.
It is good.
It wasn't HBO. It was Max, I think, wasn't it, or Showtime? One of the two.
I don't know. Netflix? I don't know.
No, well, it's on Netflix now.
Okay.
But it originally came out on Max or.
Well, I watched it through.
Showtime.
There was a few things that I was like, but then when I got to the end, and then when I read the Republic of the Pirates, when I read that book, I thought, oh, did they write this book because of the movie? And then because there were so many guys they're covering that are in the series. No, this book was written before the series came out, and it covers almost all the main people in the series. Yeah, and it goes deep dives on them.
The series doesn't represent Hornigold like he's represented in the books and stuff.
No,
like that.
but his name is in there. Yeah, I mean it's
so they did take
they took a lot of liberties.
They did, but I mean, it's a good. I mean, but there's really been nothing else about pirates.
No,
out there. I mean, it's a really good
the Charles Vane, it was loosely kind of his personality.
Yeah.
My
wife likes Charles Vane.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Yeah, so all those guys, super interesting. Whatever. It's funny those that we.
And it hasn't deterred you from your plans.
No,
all this pirate research.
No, all it makes me want to do is get a metal detector. That's my next thing. I've been looking at underwater metal detectors, and because I'm just I just want to be scuba diving and snorkeling and
finding treasure.
Just finding stuff. I'll probably just find a bunch of bottle caps, a bunch of rusty Bud Light caps, but it'll be fun in the research of it all. Yeah, it's crazy how much stuff went on during that period. Not just there, but I really want to go over to Madagascar. Because you read all the stuff on Henry Avery. Yep. that book, The Pirate. Oh no, it does. It does actually cover this Black Flags, Blue Waters. It does actually cover the piracy in Madagascar in the 1690s pretty good, and I think better than it does in the Republic of the Pirates. So it was a good one. I learned more in this one, and about how much of piracy went hand in hand with the colonies, and why the colonies weren't respected back in England so much, because they were also kind of doing what they had to do because the taxes were so bad, and that was 100 years before there was a revolution, but the taxes were bad. Everything, East India Trading Company had a monopoly on all the trade. Everything had to be shipped, all the good spices and anyway, all the good stuff, all the good silks, all the good everything had to go from where they picked it up in Asia over to England first. Then they paid the tariffs. Everybody got to pick through everything. And then all the leftovers then got sent to the colonies. And by the time it got there, it was too expensive and picked over. So people were being pirates. And anyway, going to the source themselves. So,
and
interesting.
They got shafted.
Yeah.
A lot of the colonists got shafted from being, when we could be privateers, and then all of a sudden you can't be anymore.
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to steal your shit anyway.
There's going to be a response. There's going to be a revolt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And them dudes were hard. I mean, the mountain men here lived hard lives, but them dudes on the ships in the 1690s to 1730s, 1740s.
Yeah, these guys were.
Them dudes.
They explained how nasty it was on. It was rough.
I mean, I say men. I mean, a lot of them were 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. I mean, they weren't old men, a lot of them.
What's really good, though, in that book, the Republic of the Pirates or whatever, is they go deep dive on Woodes Rogers, and they tell his circumnavigation of the globe. Because in the series, he's sent there to be the governor, and they're all like, oh, he's the famous guy who wrote a book.
Right.
But in this book, they actually tell that. But what was interesting was that island he found in the South Pacific, just 400 miles from the very bottom of South America, 400 miles. This is in 1710 probably, somewhere in that range, okay? He's circumnavigating the globe, and he's with anyway, somebody's like, I know of an island, and we can go there and we can get provisions and stuff, because they've just gone around the Cape Horn at the bottom of South America, and it was rough, and these guys are dying of scurvy, and they needed food and fresh water. He goes, I know of an island. So it's 400 miles off the coast. They go to this island, and they find a dude who's running around on the shore, who's been there for 4 years by himself. And he's British, and they're British. Come to find out, the guy who said, I know of an island, he was on a boat with that guy 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Left him there.
And they left him there.
Wow.
He actually chose to stay there. This is a real guy who, I think his name was Alexander Selkirk. And their boat was so eaten up with worms that he told the captain, this boat isn't safe. I'd rather stay here on this island. And they were like, fine, you can stay. Then after he thought about it, he was like, then he was like, I better go. Then they said, no, you wanted to stay here. You can stay here. Yeah. So they left him on that island, and they sailed off.
No takebacks.
And they sunk because their boat had worms, and they sunk, and they all died.
Wow.
Yeah. But this guy it was a couple of ships, and this guy was in those crews. And that's how he knew about that island. That guy was still there, and he was still alive, running around. He'd been living off of goats. That the Spanish had gone over there before, left goats over there. They had run wild and everything else. Anyway, that's the guy who Defoe, can't remember his first name, based the book Robinson Crusoe on.
Really?
When Woodes Rogers brought this guy back to England, he basically had to kind of learn how to talk again. It was amazing the stuff how he got along on that island for 4 years by himself in the 1700s. Anyway, that guy went back, and that Defoe got a hold of him, and that guy ended up dying of yellow fever off the west coast of Africa. Alexander Selkirk did later on. But what an adventurous life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I've been deep diving all those things so I can go find those islands.
It's just too funny. You guys are reading the same pirate book, right?
I was like, no way, you're reading a pirate book, and there's a lot of them. I have a huge list of pirate books in my Kindle. I made a list where I'm like, I'm gonna start going through these. That's funny.
Yeah. That is funny.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, a little bit. Charlie's like, what the hell did I get myself into?
Feel out of the loop, pirate-wise.
I know. Yeah, you gotta go home and be like, I gotta start studying up on pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be deep diving on Stillwater County for sure. It's been inspiring for me, like to, obviously I know what I do is important, but just having this conversation, it takes it to another level as far as the historical perspective. And
it's important.
When you're doing what you're doing day to day, you can lose the big picture.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
It just helps kind of reemphasize that.
Yeah. Oh man, you're into an important thing. I think it is. It's a good thing. I'm excited for
these
you.
Papers. Thanks.
I am too.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Really.
So.
Yeah, I have that book in my desk in the other room, and like I probably should get it back to you here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't go on the ship.
Yeah, no, I won't.
In the boat with you.
No, I'll get my own by then. But I'll pull some of that up for you.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I can't wait to. I'm gonna go home and play this music and show it to April. She'll be pumped. It's exciting. It's good. Been good to get to know you. And
thanks for having me. I feel like I kind of
sure.
fumbled around my words a little bit, but I was a little rusty on this.
Fumbled around the buttons in here, and we had a lot of technical difficulties. So
I think it was super cool. I mean, we see each other quite a bit, but we're always at work.
Yeah.
I'm either sheriff's deputy, school resource officer, or in city council. It's nice just to sit back and shoot the breeze and get to know you a little bit. So I'm glad you're
Likewise.
here. I'm glad
Thanks,
you're
man.
here. I think you're going to be a huge asset to the community for sure, and I'm excited to see where you take the paper. And I can't wait to go sit down and drink a glass of whiskey and listen to some music for sure. So
right on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed visiting with both of you.
Yeah.
Love to do it again
Likewise.
sometime with my guitar.
100%.
I'm down.
We should do it.
All these years, we thought we knew, but it seems our hearts were quiet. And now, my words are few as I try to define it. 'Cause you took me by surprise. Open your eyes, give me a try. Watch you go with other men. I've seen them take you home. I never thought I'd need a friend. Never minded being alone. But now, much to my surprise, you've opened my eyes. I wanna give you a try. Got nowhere left to hide. I've placed my cards in front of you, and I've looked in to the other side.